Welcome on in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan. Streaming online at 1069thefan.com and on the 1069 The Fan mobile app. Also streaming live on YouTube. The Fan KLGN is the YouTube account we're on. It's The Fan KLGN. Search for us there and you'll be able to watch video of us if you so please. Thank you, everyone who is joining us for today's show. And if you want to join the show via the Young Power Sports Logan text line, you can do so at 435-339-0321. Text that number, 435-339-0321. Text in your thoughts on any of the topics we're going over today. We're going to lean heavily into Utah State basketball, their win over Grand Canyon that set them up all alone in first place in the Mountain West with 2 games left to play. As Jared Calhoun has said a couple of times, the Aggies are now 40 minutes away from securing at least a share of the Mountain West Championship. We'll get into the Mountain West title race as a whole, but also look at the other games that happened over the weekend that helped set up that scenario for the Aggies. Take a look at bracketology, not just for the Aggies, but for the conference as a whole, and even a little discussion of Miami of Ohio, or just Miami, as they like to be referred to.
It depends on who you're talking to.
Yeah, it depends on who you're talking to. We'll also talk about the Utah Jazz, some other NBA topics, including 2 former Aggies that are in the NBA and the outstanding seasons they are having as key contributors for contenders in the Eastern Conference. We'll also have Utah State Gymnastics, who became Mountain West champions themselves this last week. They brought the trophy with them to the Spectrum to show off during a timeout of the Aggies game, the basketball team's game, that put them in the driver's seat for the Mountain West title in men's basketball. So we'll talk about that, along with softball, who played a couple of games, like 3 or 4 games over the weekend. And then we'll have our Pick 6 results at the end of the show. So let's get rolling. Talk about that game against Grand Canyon. First half, things looked absolutely flawless for the most part. You hold Grand Canyon to 27 points, and that was with them making 6 3-pointers. They tend to average like 6.5 made 3-pointers a game. They made 6 of them, and they still only scored 27 first half points. The Aggies go for, 41 first half points? You're getting, you hit 7 3-pointers yourself if you're the Aggies. You get contributions from Carson Templin, who hit a couple of 3-pointers. Drake Allen hits a couple of 3-pointers, and he goes 14 points in the first half. Zach Keller hits a 3-pointer. It was actually the first game all year in which each of Drake, Zach, and Carson all hit a 3-pointer in the same game. And, Mason only has 4 points, but he has 5 rebounds in that first half. Like, everything was going swimmingly. And then suddenly things looked a lot more dicey by the time you get about midway through the first half.
Yeah, a great start of the half. They hold Grand Canyon scoreless for like 5 minutes in that first half, really separate. Drake Allen is just taking things to another level the way he was playing. But you're right. At halftime, give credit to that Grand Canyon team, making adjustments, attacking the rim, not being intimidated, putting pressure on Utah State. And then it was anybody's game. But then the Aggies did start to separate a little bit more, but they left the door open. Can't hit their free throws, can't hit the automatic stuff.
Drake Allen was the only one who couldn't hit their free throws.
And thank goodness to an MJ Collins 3-pointer, which really kind of sealed the deal for Utah State, because until then, it was still anybody's game. Grand Canyon was still very much alive and in the thick of this. And so, Utah State was predicted to win by 9 or 10 points. So they didn't. So it was like, okay, maybe you underperformed a little bit.
Yeah, I think they fell 1 spot in KenPom after all was said and done.
Yeah, in today's net, they're down to 26.
Yeah, which is I think it's the same there in KenPom.
You win, but you drop.
Yeah.
But you didn't win by as much as a lot of people suspected. So, they left the door open. They made it closer than it needed to be. But at the end of the day, Utah State still won the game. They beat Grand Canyon. They didn't allow a team to sweep them. Great crowd. Probably the loudest the crowd got was when Drake Allen hit that one free throw late after missing so many before.
Not quite. It got slightly louder at other points,
yes. But still,
that was one of the loudest I've heard for a free throw that occurred before like the final minute.
Yeah, for one of your own guys. Yeah. But still some concerns with some of the ways that this game went on. I do at least appreciate that his coaching staff, they let Zach Keller and Gary Clark have a longer run, even though they may not have been as effective on the court with scoring or rebounding. They gave them opportunities to run and gave them opportunities to be on the court and still have an effect on the game, utilizing their size. And so I was happy to see that from the coaches, that even though Zach, may not have been a real offensive force, or and even Gary Clark didn't score and only had one rebound, that they still allowed them to play through that. Like against a team like Grand Canyon, you need to let your big guys play. And they did. And so even though they don't show up a lot in the box score, they still helped this team in a lot of ways in how they played.
Well, here's the thing that really helped Zach and Gary make sure they stayed on the court. Without looking, how many fouls do you think they combined for?
With Zach Keller and Gary Clark?
Zach Keller and Gary Clark.
I don't want to cheat.
That's what I said. Don't look.
2.
Under.
Really?
1.
Only one.
Zach, in 34 combined minutes for those two players, Zach Keller had 1 foul. Gary didn't have any. Let's see, when was that foul? It was like about 8 minutes left in the second half.
I thought I was crazy for spitting out 2.
Yeah, it was like that was like you probably thought that was low, but it was still too high. Because they didn't foul. Like Carson kind of just absorbed all the fouls that maybe those guys took. He ends up fouling out of the game, but it didn't even feel like he was necessarily having a game where he was fouling too much. He mostly timed him out to where like he plays 20 minutes. He usually plays between 20 and 25. It didn't really impact his minutes played, except for the fact that he missed about the last, I think, 3 or 4 minutes. He missed the last 51 seconds where he had to sit out because he fouled out. So, yeah, not fouling. And I want to talk about the first half because the first half was basically everything you wanted the Aggies to do. Like, it wasn't like they were covering up and getting away with some of the weaknesses that we were looking at that were potentially dangerous for this game, because he thought, fouling Grand Canyon a lot, like, with the potential matchup problems with Henley and with all of their bigs. And then rebounding, the Aggies over the last, 4 or 5 games have been one of the worst rebounding teams really in the country, you could say, especially on the defensive end. They somewhat made up for it at times with some good offensive rebounding, but still were one of the worst rebounding teams in the country. They'd been dominated in the paint. They allowed teams to live in the paint, draw fouls, and hit layups. And the Aggies had at times struggled with getting to the paint themselves, though that was mostly the San Diego State game. In the first half, they held Grand Canyon to 8 points in the paint. 27 points overall, but 8 points in the paint. I think they were out rebounding him, or the rebounding battle was close at halftime. I think Grand Canyon had 3 offensive rebounds the entire first half. And they didn't foul them really in the first half. The Aggies were called for 5 fouls. Didn't even put Grand Canyon in the bonus. They were putting Nevada and San Diego State in the bonus by the under 12 media time.
Yeah. That's you're right. That was a huge improvement. Only 14 fouls on the day for Utah State.
Yeah,
and just a lot cleaner defensive game. Yes, Carson Templin fouled out. He picked up his 5. But I'll take every one of those.
Yeah, nobody else had more than 2.
Yeah, I mean, yes, there may have been 1 or 2 that were still kind of silly, and you don't need to do that. What he did,
yeah.
But he was being Carson Templin. He was active.
Yeah,
he was trying to make things happen, and he helped his team win. Like legitimately, he made game-winning plays. Yes, he had maybe a problem here or there with a foul, but generally speaking, with his activity, he helped Utah State win the game.
Yeah, and when you get to the end of the game where Utah State had normally been putting teams in the bonus for 10 minutes, one, they didn't give those free points to Grand Canyon, and heck, that's a good thing because Grand Canyon didn't miss a free throw up until like the last second of the game.
That's right.
They go 12 of 12 to start the game. A team that's decent at free throws, but you had guys that were like 50% free throw shooters going 3 of 3 in the game. Demerol might be in the 70s. But they weren't sending these guys to the line a ton. Remember, they took 33 free throws in the first game. Actually shot kind of poorly in that first game, but you get 33 attempts. And so they got 10 more points, and I think they hit 22 of those, or 22 or 23 of those in the first game.
Yeah, the fouls and the free throws.
Yeah, they
difference between these two games was so night and day.
Like they doubled their free throw percentage and had their points on free throws cut in half. Like that's the kind of discipline the Aggies had on defense for the game. So while in the second half, the rebounding kind of fell off, the Aggies got out rebounded this game 35-27. The points in the paint defense fell off a bit. Grand Canyon had 22 points in the paint in the second half alone, so that brought them up to 30 for the game, pretty much on par with what the Aggies, actually it was exactly what the Aggies did. The Aggies had 30 points in the paint, so did Grand Canyon. So by the end, they kind of evened that out. But the thing that kept the same was the discipline on defense and the fouls, and that's something that, even though for the first 16-ish minutes of the second half, a lot of those things stopped going their way, the points in the paint, all these different things. Grand Canyon starts hitting more shots. They were still able to buckle down, and since they weren't fouling, they were staying disciplined. That's the thing that helped them get those last couple of stops. And that's where they end up selling. That's where they, when you go down 59-58, the way the Aggies are playing on defense the whole game against Nevada or San Diego State, that kind of defense would have lost the game. Pretty much the sole difference being their discipline on defense with fouling. Since they still had that, they still had that discipline. Things could eventually turn their way with that hustle that they had. And it did. Because, they go on a 7-0 run. They don't give up easy, cheap buckets. They don't give up easy, free throws up until the very end. And then finally luck turned their way. Because, if Grand Canyon had been in the double bonus when Usu Anane misses the front end of that 1-and-1, he would have got another free throw.
Right.
As it was, the Aggies were able to get that rebound and then pretty much seal the game from there. That was pretty much the game-losing free throw. But if they were in the double bonus, then they would have been able to, get another point, draw a little bit closer, make things a little bit more iffy in those final seconds.
Yeah, I really liked how Utah State was aggressive. They didn't seem intimidated by Grand Canyon. I was a little surprised with some of the Grand Canyon decisions. Really, they only had a 6-man rotation, really.
Yeah.
They had a pretty healthy team. Yes, some guys got hurt over the course of the game, but Nana Owusu Anane, he got hurt, but he came back. Wilhelm Breidenbach got hurt. He did not come back.
Yeah, but
he hadn't really played much before that point anyway.
He'd gone through 3 cycles of subbing in and out for a minute. He subbed in the first half, played a minute and a half. Did the same thing later in the first half. Comes in the second half, was probably at the end of his stint anyway, as he'd played 2 minutes. That's as long as he'd played elsewhere. So
an all-world center, Dennis Evans, only managed 2 minutes on the court.
Yeah, and
who just totally destroyed the Aggies in Phoenix.
Yeah, and the Aggies, I think, had 2 different plays where they finished around him, where they couldn't finish around him to save his life, or save their lives. He got 6 blocks.
They got 4 blocks and 2 goaltends. They called them blocks.
They did call a goaltend against. I think it was against Demerol, though. I think he was the one that blocked a shot by I forget who, but it was called a goaltend, rightfully so, because it was the right call. But Evans, he was -8 when he was on the court. He was, and he played 3 minutes. He got scored by 8 points. They had to sub him out immediately. So they had 3 guys on their bench who played a collective 8 minutes. And were -9 between all of them. So it was, as you said, a 6-man rotation. They get 6 points off the bench. The Aggies get 30 points off of their bench. And I think that's just where Grand Canyon, they're starting to limit their bench, and the Aggies are not. The Aggies are going as deep as they ever have, playing guys the same minutes they have been all year. And this is where that could begin to perhaps help, because Grand Canyon made that push to come back from down 17 points. They finally get over the hump. The Aggies starters kind of cycle back in, and you get to your closing lineups with 5 minutes left. Grand Canyon will have been playing its closing lineup for about 10 minutes straight at that point.
Right.
The Aggies come in, they have the gas, the fuel to still play good on offense, but more especially play great on defense. because Grand Canyon just slowed down on defense at the end where they had been playing good. They left MJ Collins wide open from three.
Yeah, they totally didn't rotate.
Yeah,
they just didn't seem interested or just totally lost on it.
Yeah, so
that's why I think that, not to get too far off of this, but that's why I think that Memphis game is really not that big of a deal. Where there was wringing of hands and pulling of hair, that's why Utah State lost at Nevada and at San Diego State, because they didn't have that extra rest day. They didn't have their bye week. Well, the way that this team is built, the way this team is so deep, and the way that they can go through deeper into the bench and more options, Utah State's not leaning on their guys as hard. They haven't been all year. So they can still play hard, but they're not leaning on only 5, maybe 6 guys to do it. Utah State had 9 guys who played, and all of them played double-digit minutes. All of them played significant stretches in this game. So Mason Falsa played the most of anybody with 34 minutes.
Yeah, and in a 5-point game,
Grand
in a
Canyon
crucial
had 3 guys who did more than that.
Yeah, in a crucial game where you're fighting for a Mountain West title and things are getting really tight in the second half.
And it's anybody's game with 4 minutes to go.
Yeah, that's the kind of game where your star is playing 38, 39 minutes. Every, team in the conference, save for probably San Diego State, is playing their top player every single minute of the game. The Aggies' 2 best players barely eclipsed 30 minutes.
Yeah, barely. I mean, MJ Collins had 31 and Mason had 34. As in comparison, Nana Owusu-Anane, who was hurt, but they had to keep playing him, he played 37.
Yeah, that's about the only reason he went off the court was because he was hurt.
Yeah.
And I think he got 2 fouls in the first half for a minute, or like he subbed out and in really quick in the first half.
Yeah, eventually he did get fouled out, so he did.
Yeah, he did eventually
finish
foul
the
out.
game,
That was like 6 seconds left though, so he basically didn't miss any time.
Demeril had 32. Makai Williams played for 38. Brian Moore Jr. played for 31. Jaden Henley played 35. Every starter played north of 31 minutes.
Yeah.
And Utah State had 2 guys.
Yeah, 2 guys.
Barely did more than that.
So that really shows the depth. One last point I want to make before we go to break, and if you guys want to chime in on any of these topics, we'll get to those here in a minute when we come out of the break. Text 435-339-0321 for any of your thoughts on today or Saturday's game. The one thing I thought, and I kind of mentioned this on social media during the game, but something I thought was really incredible from Carson Templin, Drake Allen, and really the whole team, because I even saw MJ Collins on a couple of plays, is, with Nevada and San Diego State, Utah State kind of got drunk on their own 3-point shooting. And, justifiably so with Nevada, they hit 15 of them. Against San Diego State, it was a little less justifiable, especially after they hit 3 early ones, then they just couldn't stop shooting 3-pointers.
Yeah.
Drake Allen, Carson Templin, and Zach Keller all hit 3-pointers. They combined for 5 3-pointers, in that first half. Carson, they all end up with 6 by the end of the game, but they hit 5 3-pointers in the first 5 or 10 minutes or something like that. They, at no point did any of them really try a heat check 3 in that first half. And there was opportunities. Drake could have just launched some. Carson, there were a couple he could have launched. But I think something that must have been an emphasis, or at least they've been thinking about it themselves, and given the fact that all of them are doing this, I think it was an emphasis by the team. It's like, hey, if you've hit a couple of 3-pointers, don't just shoot another 3-pointer thinking that you're definitely going to make it. Make the right read. If you've hit a couple of 3-pointers and you find yourself wide open from 3, yeah, go for it. But Drake and Carson were finding themselves in situations where they could take that heat check. The defense was closing fast. They could have checked it up there and said, hey, I've hit 2, let's go for 3. Like Drake was doing that against Nevada. He went 5 for 5. There's a world where that has value if you were just on a heater.
Yeah.
But instead,
still do it within the frame of the offense.
And within the frame of the offense goes back to Coach Calhoun, play to the next advantage. And that's what they were doing. A 3-pointer, a heat check 3-pointer was not within, that next advantage mentality. And so they were attacking closeouts. They'd pump fake, then they'd attack a closeout. Drake Allen, Carson Templin, as I said, MJ Collins did this as well in the first half. And they were generating open layups, good shots. And so they didn't just settle for, well, I'm hot from three, I'm just going to keep jacking 3-pointers.
Yeah.
They played to the next advantage, and that's where they scored 41 points and a half against one of the better defenses in the country. It's where they end up, even though they shot kind of poorly in the second half for stretches, 74 points in a game where they had the ball 60 times. 1.23 points per possession. It's 123 offensive rating, which is really good. So the Aggies had a good offensive game because they moved the ball well. They moved themselves with the ball, attacked closeouts, made the right decision. Coach Calhoun talked about making the right decision from the free throw line on down. They were doing that. And so it was really nice to see where for 2 games they were just kind of high on 3-pointers. And the Aggies have been shooting incredibly well from 3. There is a reason they should be shooting 3-pointers.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's taking the right ones at the right time and then taking advantage of the defense when they're suddenly trying to stop you when you're hot from 3. Because, you had guys who were running like me after an ice cream truck when they see Carson Templin on the 3-point line. And if they're running like that, Carson better be closing out that, even though he's not necessarily a put the ball in the net kind of guy, yeah, you closed out the man who's rushing that hard at you to block your 3-pointer. Drake Allen the same way. He's a guy who can really get going downhill. We saw that in a couple of different ways. So that's where you can see guys evolving to be like, hey, there's a smarter way to play, even though you're good 3-point shooters. Recognize what are the better shots, because a contested 3-pointer versus a drive to the lane, one of those is objectively better. And it's not the contested 3-pointer.
Uncontested 3-pointers are also nice.
Uncontested, like I said, if
but
they
Drake
were
Allen,
if they were uncontested,
turnover where he's like, should I take the 3? No, maybe I'll drive. And turnover.
Yeah, he should have shot that 3-pointer at the end. But Drake Allen, those early 3-point shots, they left him open. They went under the screen and said, scouting report says let the guy who shoots 20% from 3 shoot the 3-pointer. And Drake was like, all right, bet. Bang, there's 2 of them. Yeah. Hit those. And Carson Templin, when you're wide open and they sag 10 feet off of you, you hit that 3-pointer.
Take the shot.
But when you've made 1 or 2, instead of taking that heat check, close them out. And Grand Canyon was over helping on a lot of stuff on the perimeter, and Utah State was abusing that defense in the first half. The adjustments did come for Grand Canyon in the second, and credit to them for that. But Utah State, by the way they played smart on offense in the first half, set up the rest of the game and ultimately the win. We're overdue for a break. We'll take that here, come back. We'll get to you guys' text. Again, 435-339-0321 is the number to text to be part of the show via the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. We'll be back after this here on the Full Court Press. Welcome back in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan, and streaming online at YouTube, The Fan at KLGN YouTube account. Check us out there. You can see video of us. If you want to join the show via the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, you can do so at 435-339-0321, and that's where we're going to head now. Read some of these texts, 9 through 15 with a couple. Saying Drake came out of this game with not one, but two new kids. Stole my joke, 9 through 15.
He had some great dunks. He had some great moments in the game where he absolutely helped Utah State. And then he had some your head moments like, can you make a free throw? Why are you having a turnover now?
Yeah, he was the tale of two halves because in the first half, he was pretty much the reason that the Aggies were doing as well as they did because Grand Canyon, I mean, everyone's been doing this. They've been putting so much emphasis on MJ Collins and Mason Falslev saying, these two guys aren't going to beat us. We think that we can hold these guys down. Like MJ and Mason aren't like these kind of guys who can just automatically get whatever shots they want. They're not necessarily a walking isolation bucket the way that someone like Draw Gibbs Lawhorn or a lot of the conference have those kind of guys that just, have a really tight handle or really lightning quick, can get to whatever spot they want, and they're just hitting shots all over the floor. MJ and Mason aren't necessarily that kind of player. They can pick their spots a little bit more. They'll force it when they need it, and Mason's done that at times. But if you're like hyper fixated on them, you can usually slow them down, but it ends up opening up the defense opening up the defense to other players. That's where Drake caught them. That's where Carson Templin can burn you because MJ and Mason will just pass the ball to the wide open guy. They're not forcing shots.
No.
And so that's where Drake was able to get all those points. But yeah, and then in the second half, he was almost helpless at times.
Yeah, the Drake Allen experience. But hat tip to Jeff Grammer, who shared this earlier today, or I think maybe it was yesterday. This is courtesy of CBB Analytics, but looked at the top 20 individual plus-minus players in the Mountain West. 3 of the top 5 are Aggie players.
Yeah.
MJ Collins, number 1, Mason Falslev, number 4, and Drake Allen, number 5. So 3 of the top 5 wear Aggie uniforms. Those other 2, those are New Mexico Lobos.
Yeah, they're both New Mexico Lobos. And one of them wasn't the one I thought it would be because it was Luke How do you say his last name?
Haupt.
Yeah, Haupt? I wasn't sure if the P was pronounced. And then Jake Hall is the other one, right?
Yes.
Where usually Tomislav Buljan is one who is loved by analytics, but a plus-minus isn't necessarily analytic. It's just a raw how much have you outscored the other team while you're on the court.
Yeah.
Where there's a lot of Aggies at the top.
Well, if you expand this to the top 10, then you also include Carson Templin, who comes in at number 9. There are 4 Aggies in the top 10.
Yeah, there are a lot of Aggies like in the top 10 and in the top 20 or 30. When you're a team that has won as many games as the Aggies have, that's kind of the way it's going to be.
That helps, but yeah, the point is that it's not just one guy you can try to eliminate from the equation to stop Utah State.
Yeah,
and Saturday was an illustration of that. If Mason Falslev wants to cement his position as the Mountain West Conference Player of the Year, he probably needed to have a little bit more offense last week. But you know what? Individual accolades are nice, but having the team cemented as the number 1 team in the Mountain West, that's better.
Yeah, he played in a manner, and he could have played better, but he played in a manner that was, a big positive to his team. He had 9 rebounds, was going up there getting some tough rebounds. He had 4 assists, still had a decent offensive night, goes 4 of 9 from the field, hits a 3-pointer, hit a couple of clutch free throws. So he did what he needed to do. And, Coach Calhoun, his comments after the game was when the Aggies were coming out of the timeout, they had just retied the game at 59. Mason was actually at the free throw line, hit his first free throw. Grand Canyon calls timeout. And Coach Calhoun said that he said Mason Falslev turned on Falslev mode. That's what he called it. Had that look in his eye. And yeah, Mason scored, 4 of his 11 points were in that span where the Aggies were down 58-59. He scores 4 points.
In the clutch.
Yeah, in clutch. 2 at the free throw line. Then I think another, if I remember it correctly, I might be mixing up with later, but he had this, scoop right-handed layup from the left side of the rim around, I believe it was Demeril again, who was, it's a 7'1", 7'2" guy that Mason is trying to finish around. He's struggled to finish around length for his whole career, but there, slides it in there, gets the bucket. And then I think he had the assist on Colby King's 3-pointer.
Yeah.
That turned it into a 7-0 run that, then they were leading, 65-59 or something like that.
Yeah, some of his assists late, some of his scoring late, his general playmaking late in the clutch, in the last 5 minutes. So when we say the clutch, it's 5 minutes remaining, and it's like I think it's defined by a 2-possession game.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a...
It's more of an NBA analytic.
Yeah, they don't really have
that
the analytic in college, but
basically the last 5 minutes of a game, when it's tight, it's really anybody's game at this point.
If it's within like a possession at some point in the last 5 minutes or so,
right?
That's generally a clutch game.
And Mason is fantastic in those moments.
Yeah,
he makes a lot of game-winning plays for his team. So he's not scoring 30 points like Draw Gibbs Lawhorn, but he's helping his team win.
Yeah, in those last, in the last 6 minutes of the game, he had a block, an offensive rebound, 2 made free throws, a defensive rebound, a layup, 2 assists.
That's incredible.
Like, yeah, you have 4 points in that stretch, but a bunch of different things that were helping out. And that offensive rebound led to his free throws. So he created 2 points with that offensive rebound. So it was, just a lot of great play from him. Yeah, even though it's not filling the stat sheet, it's not a 42-point game like Gibbs Lawhorn is doing. But in its own way, he was contributing to winning on both ends of the court. Going back to the Young Power Sports Logan text line 9310, saying, "Is Adlon Elamine going to lose his starting spot?"
To who?
Yeah, that's the question. To who?
Who's replacing him?
Because he is playing a little bit less, and he's starting to struggle a little bit, where he's not having as much of an impact. He's not finding his shot as much. And, he plays 17 minutes, and on the stat line, he was a ghost. He had 2 rebounds, 1 assist, a turnover, only took 1 shot. He missed it. He was -2 in the plus-minus, worst on the team, actually. So he was struggling a little bit. He's played good in spurts against Nevada and San Diego State, but for most of his minutes, he struggled. But here's the thing. He's having a down stretch. That's obvious. But the thing is, he's still valuable to the team. His length, the plays that he can still make, they're going to put him out there on the court. And who's he going to lose his starting job to? Carson's not going to come in and play that spot, because they have a rotation that they have set, and it works. And it's not necessarily based off of who are the 5 best players by the analytics or by whatever metric you want to do. Because if you're doing the 5 best players, so to speak, you would have a starting lineup of Drake Allen, Colby King, MJ Mason, and Carson. Yeah. That would be your starting lineup if you want to say, who are the 5 best players on the team? That's probably the starting lineup. But the Aggies like the lineup they have, the starting lineup. They've been using it since the first or second game I think since Illinois State, I think was when they pretty much set this starting lineup, and they've been going with it ever since, save for one game where Drake was injured, I think. And I think Zach, even when he got injured, he came back the next game and still started.
Yeah, there's been some lineups on the court when Zach and Carson play alongside each other. But that's when you're going up against another jumbo lineup. You need big guys on the court.
Yeah.
But Adlon Elamine, going through a little bit of a slump, but he's not going to lose his starting job.
Yeah,
he'll be fine. He'll get out of it. This is a guy who's played big minutes for the Aggies. Whatever it is that's slowing him down right now, hopefully he gets out of it. Hope they can identify what that is. But he'll be okay, I would assume.
Yeah, and really the biggest thing that they're kind of missing is he had a stretch where he was a dominant rebounder. And he needs to get back to that. Coach, every time we ask him about Adlon Elamine, how's he doing? He's he needs to focus. Coach says he needs to focus on rebounding and defense. His shot will come to him. Adlon has kind of been pushing for his shot. This game, I think, was probably too much of a reaction the other way, where he didn't really look for his shot at all. There were a couple times he was probing the defense, but didn't really look for his shot, didn't really shoot a lot. But the thing that is most valuable for him. And Zach Keller kind of understands this to a degree. Like, he's not out there to score. If he's open, yeah, I'll shoot it. If I get in a pick and roll and they pass me the ball, I'm going to roll to the basket and put it in.
Yeah.
Elmi needs to understand his offense, his offensive role is, corner threes, wing threes, closeouts, dump off passes to dunks. Like, that's his offensive role. And that is a kind of offensive role that will get you 17 points or 0. And you can go anywhere in between.
Yeah.
And you got to understand that sometimes. Like, ask Carson Templin. He was that kind of player for basically all of last year. This year he's creating a little bit more, and that's where he's, getting more to be a consistent double-digit scorer. But Elmi needs to understand his offensive role, and then like Carson, he did everything but score. I mean, he's still scoring some, but his role was not necessarily scoring. Drake Allen understands in a lot of ways. His role isn't always to score. The situation puts him there. Yeah, you'll go do it. But you got to understand, Adlin Elmin's biggest value to the Aggies is his length, ability to rebound, or at least theoretical ability to rebound, and the length that it also brings, and combined with his agility, he's a 6'9" guy who can guard 6'4", 6'2" players.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the kind of value that he brings, and I think
such versatility.
And he seemed to understand that, or at least be flowing with that for a while, and then he kind of got away with it because he was playing well, and suddenly think, okay, now I'm going to expand my role. No, you got to play within your role, do the things that you do well, and that's what's going to carry you into bigger roles down the line. And so Adlin just kind of needs to settle down, get things figured out. He's young. He's a freshman. It's not going to go perfectly. But if he starts locking in on that again, the Aggies become that much more dangerous.
Yeah, and generally there's what do they call it, a freshman wall.
Yeah.
These guys, they're...
Perryman kind of hit that. Now he's starting to break out of it.
Physically, are they at a point where they can do this?
And I think mentally too.
And mentally, just kind of dragging and just how much that you're asked to do. So he'll be fine. I'm not worried about it. And I don't see gosh, we need to get Tucker Anderson more minutes because he deserves them. And that's not a slight against Tucker Anderson. It's just that you see more potential with Adlin Elmin on the court for all the reasons you just detailed. Tucker has helped Aggies in the past, but Adlin Elmin is a better versatile player for Utah State. So you still give him a chance to work through this. It's not like there's somebody gunning for that position that you really start to wonder if maybe we should give those minutes to somebody else.
Yeah. Another text from 2444 before we hit another break saying, seeing them in person, how do those 2 dunks by Drake Allen from Saturday rank among the other great dunks that either of you have seen since you started covering USU? Those were spectacular. There's some even more exciting about a point guard and putting defenders on a poster like that. Yeah, off the top of my head, I suddenly struggle, but one that comes to mind was a great Osborne dunk. Usually the greatness of a dunk usually ends up coming around because I didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
And there was one from Great Osborne where it was like a lob, and I think, oh, great, it's just going to catch, and he's going up. Because, he's 6'8", he's not like this towering guy, but he just rises way higher than he had any right to do so. One hands it and just throws it down. It's it's the one where it causes a reaction from me where I'm normally kind of stoic on the sideline, not really doing anything vocally or visually, and it'll make you go oh! If you get media row to go, oh! You've made a really good play.
Yeah.
Drake's was certainly like that because I was not expecting it in the slightest because I saw him moving and I saw Demeril coming. I was like, oh, we're on a collision course. 7'2" versus 6'5". This is not a great matchup. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh gosh, dang. And it was even funnier because he throws it down and the ball bounces on Demeril's head.
Oh yeah.
It's the even more embarrassing.
Beautiful.
And,
those were some great dunks. And I'm like you. I got to think.
Dexter Akano had a really amazing one last year.
It. Dexter had some good ones.
I have to work my way backwards.
But I think
great dunks.
One of the best dunks I have ever seen from the Utah State Aggies, still to this day, is Brady Jardine at St. Mary's. That was just unreal what he did in a game, and it was a putback dunk, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Jardine, and then I think Ty Wesley. Those are probably 2 of the all-time where it's just absolutely
the athleticism,
nasty.
Explosiveness, just the point of the game.
Yeah.
That I think the Brady Jardine one is still number 1.
Yeah.
At least that I've watched or witnessed in person. But those on Saturday night, those are definitely worthy of discussion. Those
since
were
I
spicy.
started, I know Ian Martinez, Great Osborne, Dexter Econo, and now Drake Allen have all thrown down ones where it's just like, holy cow, where did that come from? And there's some other ones like, Josh Aduje had one where he like spun to the basket. Didn't look like he had like any sort of momentum that he was generating going to the basket. And then he just went straight up, like 6'5". It's hard to do a standing dunk if you're 6'5" without this big wind up. And a lot of guys can't even do it. To go from flat footed underneath the basket to dunking the basketball, he just went whoop, dunk. I was like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Like these guys are crazy athletic. You don't realize they're this athletic until they're absolutely throwing it down on you. And
yes.
And so it's pretty crazy. And it was really nasty by Drake Allen. We do need to take a break. When we come back, we'll go through some of these other texts, but also someone was very generous today.
Big gift.
Utah State Athletics. We don't know who, but we know some of the details of a gift that has been pledged to Utah State Athletics, one that will be paid out over the next 5 years. So we'll get to that next here on the Full Court Press. Welcome back to the Full Court Press. The Best of Northern Utah contest is back, presented by Alpine Cleaning and Restoration. Nominate your favorite businesses, the places you love, the people you trust, who's the hidden gem that more people should know about, the business you recommend without even thinking about it. Local legend who's been serving the community for decades. This contest is how we recognize the best businesses in town. Nominate them now at bestofnorthernutah.com. Eric, hit him with the jingle.
Best of Northern Utah.
That is not the jingle.
Something like that.
Something like that. Those are the words. Indeed.
Those are the words. Yes.
8968 with a text on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line saying, for a while in the second half, I started to think the Aggies wanted the championship. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, for a while in the second half, it looked like they didn't.
Yeah.
It was more like the first half. And then late in the second half, like the Aggies showed that they're a clutch team. Like, losing in the clutch against Nevada was an anomaly. They have normally been clutch.
Yes.
They've typically either lost games, kind of got out of hand, Before there were really tons of clutch plays like Grand Canyon, even UNLV to a degree. They kind of lost the game before the final 3 or 4 minutes. South Florida, they lost that game by 14. San Diego State, obviously, not even a chance to really get into the clutch. But in Nevada, it was like the one game where it was like a tight game, and could have tied it, could have taken the lead in those final couple of minutes, and they just failed to. And then in the final minutes against Grand Canyon, they said, no, we're going to make the clutch plays. Yeah, sure, it's a one possession game with like a minute or so left, but they said they just were like, we're going to make the clutch plays.
Yeah.
And so that's what they ended up doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's what one of the fun things about this team this year is just that they don't wilt under the pressure in clutch situations. That they more often than not have found ways to hang in there, continue to play tough, and to get wins. Because we've seen teams in the past play well during most of the game, but as it gets tight, nobody wants to really make a shot. They keep passing the ball. Who's going to take it? Who's going to drive? Who's going to create? But we don't really see that with this team. It's not always the same guy, but collectively as a team, they hang in there and they still give themselves a chance.
Yeah. Speaking of coming up in the clutch, we have someone, we don't know who, it was an anonymous gift to Utah State Athletics of $2.5 million, which may not seem like a lot to those who are rolling in $100 million budgets, but for Utah State,
I don't care where you're at. That's still a lot of money.
That is a lot of money. Somebody have a spare $2.5 million they can give me. I promise it'll be put to good use. Yeah, it'd be put to a house, to be honest. That's what I'd put it towards. But yeah, the Utah State Athletics releasing this today, saying an anonymous donor pledged $2.5 million, and it'll be it's a pledge. It is not a $2.5 million check handed to Cam Walker, but it's going to be paid out over the next 5 years. So they have a specific map here. This isn't, some people saying, oh, we have $30 million in pledge money. We promise we have it. This is fairly cold hard cash in a sense, but it's obviously it's being paid over 5 years. So $500,000 a year, essentially, if I'm doing my math right. So it's being put toward the athletic department. It'll count toward the Show Me initiative.
Yeah.
And it will count toward that 6-month goal, which is by August 1st. So, which I forget. Oh yeah, it was the $20 million. They're trying to raise $20 million in cash and pledges, because that's where the wording comes in. They want $20 million in cash and pledges to have been accumulated by August 1st. So this will count toward that. So this is 10%, roughly, a little more than 10% of that 6-month goal by one person. So that's something that, again, raising this kind of money, just the raw cash. There are goals with the Show Me initiative about tickets and different things like that, but a good chunk of it is raw cash and asking people, please give us some money to help us going into our Pac-12. That's where Utah State's going with. And somebody has responded to that with $2.5 million. That's stuff that, obviously helps with increased spending in a number of factors, but most notable for fans, they want to see increased spending in is things like revenue sharing, coaching contracts and things like that to keep coaches and players in Logan a little bit longer.
Yeah, and what's nice about this, sometimes the way things go with donors is that people generally feel like, yes, I'd like to donate, but I'm not really going to donate unless it's really going to do anything. And in other words, I'll donate if I see other people also donating.
Yeah.
And so this is a great lead to get things jump started and help other people realize, oh, okay, this is going to go somewhere. Because sometimes there are efforts in fundraising that this is our goal, it's lofty, but it's like, there's no way we're going to reach that. And then you have a commitment like this, and everybody else is like, well, maybe they can get there. Or maybe my contribution can help get them there as well, because it's not leaning so much on a bunch of small donations. One big one can really jumpstart a lot of other things.
Yeah. We got to take a break, and we come back. We've got some more texts. We'll wrap up the first hour here on the Full Court Press on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan. Batteries, headlights, wiper blades, they're all in stock and on sale now at your local Napa Auto Parts. Chemical Guys car wash and detailing kits are only $49.99. Pick up the last bags of Blue Heat Ice Melt at $10. Get air fresheners, snow scrapers, shop towels, sea foam, and more. It's on sale at your locally owned Napa Auto Parts stores. They got locations from Preston all the way down to Providence. Got a text on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. We'll get to that, 9315, saying, I bet the pledge, that $2.5 million pledge, is from the Full Court Press. That's why it doesn't have a name attached.
Our secret's out.
Dang
Jason.
it.
Yeah.
No, I can't hide the fact anymore that I am definitely rolling in the dough.
Yeah, we had to shake a lot of cushions and...
Yeah, we were able to come up with a little bit of pocket change. Jarek and I are going without our monthly Ferrari purchase.
You should have seen the jar we had filled with pennies in the corner.
Just, how much space in this studio would $2.5 million in pretty much coins?
Oh.
Do you think would we have room to stand?
It's if it's mixed coins, and maybe.
Yeah, if it's mostly quarters and like 50-cent pieces, do you think we could?
I would think it would mostly fill this room. But
I'm gonna have to ask an AI how much volume would. And then I have to figure out the volume of this room.
Sounds like too much mathing for my brain.
That's why you make the computers do it. Just type it into the.
That's true.
The AI summaries. That's the one thing that these AI or language learning model
in
things
a
are good
10 by 10
for.
room.
Yeah, you can just be like, hey, do this math for me. That seriously, that is the one thing that they're actually good for, is to solve simple logic mathematic problems. If you get a little too complicated, they start to struggle.
Hey, quick shout out to Utah State women's gymnastics. Locked up the Mountain West Conference Championship with their win over Air Force over the weekend. Nice to see them recognized in the basketball game. Big cheer for them. They deserve it. Kristen White's doing an amazing job with that squad. And they've had an outstanding year this year with their scores, some of the highest that they've been able to achieve in Utah State history. And then certainly taking care of business for the Mountain West as well. Great to see them recognized at halftime. And just they deserve to receive even more recognition than that. Yeah,
they do. I know we're probably going to have Kristen White. Not have to. We want to have Kristen White on to talk about this program. Yeah, I had a 196.025 against Air Force to beat them. Also, another Mountain West champion crowned for the Aggies. Logan Hammer, his third straight Mountain West championship in the pole vault. So a couple of Utah State champions crowned. In the midst of Utah State men's basketball, they get a little more publicity, but there are two new Mountain West champions, one individual and one team here in the Valley. A lot of reasons for that A to be lit up blue.
Yes, take as much of that Mountain West hardware before they leave.
Yeah, got to get these final Mountain West championships.
Yes,
that's going to do it for us here in this first hour. We're going to shift over to talking. We'll continue talking about Mountain West. Though we'll take the whole conference, look at the title race, look at bracketology for everyone, including the Aggies. That's coming up next here on the Full Court Press. Welcome on in to the Full Court Press second hour of this show here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan, streaming online at 1069thefan.com and on the 106.9 The Fan mobile app. Also on YouTube, The Fan KLGN on YouTube is where you can find myself, Jason Walker, and Eric Frandsen, as we talk local sports every day from 4 to 6 p.m. Glad you could join us here. If you want to join the show, you can do so via the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 435-339-0321. And if you ever forget that text line, if you watch the video, it's just plastered on
It's
the...
always there.
It's on the screen. You can just read it off. I know I'm terrible at remembering phone numbers, so I can remember my own. Like I know my own, my mom's, my dad's. That's pretty much it. And my brother's because he stole my phone number. So
yeah, we don't... When I was a kid, man, you had to have all kinds of phone numbers memorized.
Yeah.
But, man, you don't need to anymore.
yeah, so they came in with all the
Raise
fancy...
it. Call Jason.
Yeah, it's like,
Done.
I don't think I know. I couldn't tell you like one digit in Eric's phone number other than I guess 435. That's the area code around here.
Yes, that's a good guess. Yes.
It's not a bad guess. So we talked. Excuse me. Oh gosh, Eric, I need you to take over. We're talking Mountain West hoops.
Yeah, let's talk about Mountain West. So Utah State had their big win on Saturday. That wasn't the only game. It was a very busy day. In fact, it featured a monster showdown on CBS, and they delivered. It was a great back and forth game. New Mexico and San Diego State in the pit, and at noon on Saturday, New Mexico getting the win, 81-76. And with that win, that pulled San Diego State down from that tie with Utah State. Now the Aztecs and Lobos are tied for second, but that put Utah State in the driver's seat in the number 1 seed all alone. But big game there for New Mexico to keep their Mountain West or their NCAA tournament hopes alive. A rough one for San Diego State, who have now lost 3 of their last 4. But yeah, this was a big win for the Lobos to keep themselves in the running, not only for the Mountain West but also for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, New Mexico, who were a couple of games back not too long ago, looking like things would be really tough for them. They still had games, like were a couple of games back and still had games against San Diego State and still have one against Utah State coming up on the road at Utah State. But getting that win over the Aztecs, especially where the Aztecs and Aggies have dropped a couple of late, where Utah State losing to Nevada and San Diego State. San Diego State, as you said, have lost 3 of their last 4. I mean, lost 2 of their last 3 heading into New Mexico.
Yep.
So that's made New Mexico sneaky title contenders.
Yeah, Bullion with 24 points and 18 rebounds.
Yeah, that right there was, I think, probably the performance. Maybe I can't say performance of the week because there was a guy who put up 42 points, and we'll get to that game. But yeah, just amazing effort from him. Where I'm continually amazed that the Aggies pretty much shut him down when they went to the pit, made him look like a nobody essentially. When this is a guy who, I guess I shouldn't say nobody because he had like 17 points and 7 rebounds, but like not, he had 4 fouls and just not nearly the kind of impact that he can potentially have. And it felt like a lot of his points were more garbage time stuff. But yeah, just the size that, San Diego State has actually weirdly enough struggled with at times, where Magoon Gwath is just kind of a shadow of the player that he was kind of projected to be, where he is way too often just not an impactful guy. Miles Heide is inconsistent. I think Pharaoh Compton's got some room to grow into, but then, he only scored 2 points where he was living in the paint against the Aggies.
Yeah.
And then, Reese Dixon Waters, who's been a fantastic offensive engine, just wasn't there. And so, like, that was, I think if they had a good game from Reese Dixon Waters, the Aztecs actually probably win the game. But they were missing his impact, and then they also had a really bad free throw shooting night. So
yes, they did. Yeah, a lot of free throws in that one. 36 attempts by New Mexico, 22 by San Diego State.
That's the worst kind of game. That's just your classic Mountain West game where you have these 2 great teams, 2 great defenses, 2 offenses that are capable of going off. New Mexico's done that a little bit more than San Diego State, but when you have, 58 free throws, like that's not offense.
No.
Like,
No.
I didn't come here to watch, Diet Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Not to say that these guys are foul baiting, but like, that's what it's just becoming, is guys who are just constantly going to the free throw line. So it was kind of nice watching the Aggies and Lopes, is like the referees just let them play. Like, yeah, a couple of ticky-tack fouls, but that's literally every game. They let them play. And then they didn't let them play in this game for the most part.
Yeah, San Diego State had a double-digit lead in the first half, but New Mexico kept chipping away at it, and then they take the advantage. But really, it was back and forth. This was anybody's game down to the final possession, really. It was a fun game outside of all the free throws. A good game for the Mountain West to be featured on CBS to get the type of attention for that game. But New Mexico did the Aggies a big favor in helping place the Aggies in sole possession of first place. That just means the game the game tomorrow and the game Saturday, those are still very important games for Utah State. Nothing is locked up yet. They're still very much in flux.
Yeah, but the thing that they did was they made it so the Aggies only have to win one of their next two games.
Right. They're guaranteed to still have a first round bye in the Mountain West tournament at this point. So they're guaranteed to be in the top four, but they just have to win one of their last two to at least have a share of that number one seed. And then when it comes to tiebreakers, kind of depends on which game they win and some of the other things that happen. But Utah State's in a great position in the final week. Yeah,
so win one of these next two games, and you're going to be holding a trophy. Like they'll pull out the trophy from storage. The one dirty secret is that every single school has a basically blank Mountain West championship trophy just hanging around. And if one of their teams clinches it, they just pull it out of storage and hand it to them and take a photo op with it.
There you go.
So it's
easy accessible.
It like the same trophy that volleyball pulled out for their like little halftime or timeout, like standing ovation and all that.
For gymnastics?
Yeah, for gymnastics, excuse me. Well, volleyball did the same thing when they brought theirs out when they clinched in the regular season. But like, if the Aggies clinch the Mountain West Championship, I mean, I don't know if they clinch it against UNLV. Like, I don't know how they handle that. Like at the home game in New Mexico, do they do it before or after all that? But they'll pose with a generic Mountain West Championship trophy, the same one that gymnastics pulled out the other day. That's kind of the fun thing. But yeah, that's something that the Aggies can clinch. They're 40 minutes away. Which 40 minutes? We'll find out. 40 minutes against UNLV or 40 minutes against New Mexico. Things went pretty well the last time the Mountain West Championship for the Aggies came down to beating New Mexico.
A game that turned out to be sneaky competitive, which nobody really saw coming, was Wyoming and Air Force. Like suddenly Air Force is finding its groove for stretches offensively.
Define finding its groove.
Well, they put some pressure on in the last couple of games. They've been able to score a lot more recently. But Wyoming, it wasn't a very high scoring game, but Wyoming wins it 66-62. But Air Force made a game of it. So kudos to the Falcons for not just laying dead and letting the season roll out. They're still out there. Guys are still playing. They're trying to. They still have guys on that roster that are trying to play and have opportunities. So give them some credit for staying in there. Cam Sanders with a really, really solid game for Air Force.
Yeah, they're staring 0-20 in the Mountain West. Again, they'd be the first ever and potentially last ever Mountain West team to go 0-20, depending on how realignment ends up working for the Mountain West. I don't think they'd play 20 games. But, yeah, they may become the first and potentially last team to go 0-20, and they're playing like they're desperate not to do that.
Yes.
Dang near they came really close against San Jose. We talked about that maybe being their last like real chance, but they lose that game by 6, and then getting closer at Wyoming, like on the road. But now their last two games are against Grand Canyon, home against Grand Canyon, and at Nevada. And I don't think either of those games are going to go particularly well for them.
I'll be cheering for the Air Force Falcons anyway. After that, it was Colorado State beating San Jose by 12, 85-73. Boise State taking care of Fresno State, 69-53. Future Pac-12 matchup there. But then we got to the night games, and both of them were close. Both of them were pretty exciting. Besides Utah State and Grand Canyon, the other one on national TV, this was on CBS Sports Network, Nevada at UNLV, the in-state rivalry game, and it was juicy. It went to overtime. I was pulling for a double overtime. I wanted to see UNLV just keep running out of gas because that's who Utah State plays tomorrow.
I was following this game like we were in the middle of the press conference with Jared Calhoun, and I had the stat broadcast pulled up. Like I was trying to watch it on like Hulu, but like the internet wasn't good. Like it was really choppy, so I just had the stat broadcast pulled up. Just coach saying something, I'd go back and he probably thought I was looking at stats or something. I guess I was looking at stats, but I was looking at ones
You're
from
not
a
really
different.
Preparing your next question.
Yeah, I was looking at whether UNLV was going to pull off that win there.
Yeah, and they did. And it was a monster performance by Draw Gibbs Lawhorn. I mean, this guy has scored, 74 points or something like that in his last 2 games.
And over his last 9 games, I think it's 9 or 10 games, he's averaging like 29.7 points. So like a hair under 30 points for basically a month.
Yeah. Guy was 8 for 14 from 3, 42 points in 42 minutes. Pulled down 4 boards, dished out 2 assists, had 3 steals and a block. Did foul out of the game.
Yeah, that made things a little iffy for UNLV to some degree, but they got some key plays. Tyron Jones, I believe, was the one who hit the essentially the game-winning shot.
Driving to the hoop and got that basket, which pretty much sealed the deal and only gave Nevada, was it like 3 seconds or 2.5 seconds in overtime to try to tie it or win. Yeah,
it didn't have a whole lot, but they end up not being able to pull off the tie or the win on a last-second shot attempt there in overtime. So, Nevada, they certainly put up a big effort themselves, and not getting it from Corey Camper, where he goes 2 of 12 in this game. This is one where if he shoots anything better than he did, I mean, literally, because this game went to overtime. If you do that in regulation, then Nevada might win. But making up for Corey Camper's lack of scoring was Vaughn Weems, where he came in as a pretty highly touted JUCO recruit. Like, he lit it up. I think he averaged just under or maybe just over 20 points per game. I forget which junior college he came from. I want to say it was one in Idaho or something. But he's not really shown like that volume scoring, which isn't atypical of junior college guys. You're not going to go from scoring 15 a game at JUCO to scoring 15 a game at D1. Sometimes it happens, but not most aren't able to make that clean transition. But dude's a bucket maker. And went out there and made some buckets, got to the free throw line, got a bunch of rebounds too. He's a bigger wing. He was a great rebounder at the JUCO level. So this is a really nice game where Nevada showed some of its depth of scoring. Although obviously they didn't get the win in a game where they had all this momentum. They'd beaten Utah State and San Diego State within
really
a week.
One of the hottest teams in the Mountain West.
But then they go on the road, and apparently they're just not good on the road, or at least can't finish games on the road, because they've been competitive in a lot of these late games, but just can't seem to make the clutch plays. Like, they have guys that just go ice cold. Like Corey Camper goes 2 of 12. Tayshawn Comer, he goes 3 of 12 from the field. He scores on a handful of 3-pointers and gets to the free throw. He somehow got 15 points.
Well, Elijah Price only had 1 bucket.
Yeah.
He had 10 points, but 8 of those points came at the free throw line.
They had to live at the free throw line, which is, I mean, that's kind of UNLV at this point. They commit so many fouls. They send teams to the free throw line a ton. Of course, they themselves shoot a lot of free throws, so they just muddy the game up and turn it into a free throw contest. So this game. I'm a little upset or sad that I shouldn't say upset, but I'm just a little sad I didn't get to watch this because I was obviously watching another game.
Yeah.
I was a little preoccupied. But yeah, just kind of a classic Mountain West game in both the best and worst way, considering how many fouls there were.
Last hour, we were talking about Utah State players and how they didn't need to lean on their guys quite as much. And I get it. There's overtime here, so that adds to these minutes. But MJ Collins had, 31 minutes? And Mason had 34. Nobody else got north of 30 for Utah State. Contrast that with UNLV. Walter Brown, 43 minutes. Jacob Barnaby, 34 minutes. Draw Gibbs Lawhorn, 42 minutes. Howie Fleming Jr., 42 minutes. And then Tyron Jones off the bench with 32.
And a lot of those guys would have played more minutes had they not fouled out.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, Hamilton only plays 23 minutes. I think a lot of that was due to foul trouble and then ultimately fouling out. Tyron Jones, he plays 32 minutes, but of course he had 4 fouls. Like, that was a 6-man rotation.
Yeah.
Like that, like really Isaac Williamson played 8 minutes. And then Al Green, I think he came in. I think the only reason he did come in was because of foul trouble. Like, he played 1 minute, or I don't know exactly when he showed up, but like, they had a 6-man rotation. That was because either Al Green or Isaac Williamson were pretty much only playing because of guys fouling out. I don't know when Al Green came in, but like, that's something that can maybe benefit the Aggies, where UNLV just wore themselves down in this game, playing a tight game, guys fouling out, guys playing 40 plus minutes, and the Aggies maxed out at like 34. Some of these guys only played half the game.
Yeah.
And we'll see if that ends up being a positive for the Aggies. We'll have to preview that a lot more later. I want to ask this question, Eric, and we'll get to some bracketology for the Mountain West coming up next year. I want to ask you this. How legit do you think Colorado State is in their run? So, like, to set the stage here, they're on something like a 7 or 8 game winning streak.
They've won 7 in a row.
Their wins, looking at their wins, let me read them all off. They win by 8 at home against San Jose. They win by 91-74. Was that 17 points at Air Force? They win by 11 at home against Wyoming. Win by 5 on the road at UNLV. They win by 9 at home against San Diego State. They win by 4 at home against Fresno State. They win by 8 at San Jose. For a Colorado State team that lost 8 out of 11 games to start Mountain West play, how impressive do you actually think that these 7 games are for them?
There's really only one game in that stretch that you just gave that makes me think that's a good team beating another good team. Because a lot of those other games, other teams that they beat, are below them in the standings. The San Diego State game is really the only one that stands out. So, yeah, they're picking up wins, but consider who they're beating.
Yeah.
But they're building momentum. Nevada was building momentum until they just lost.
Yeah, but now Colorado State's got to go to the pit.
But Colorado State, how much can that carry over? They've got a really good player, or a couple of really good players who missed time because of injury, but maybe they're starting to find their way again. Yeah. I wouldn't overlook or sleep on the Rams, but I don't know if I'd say that they're the best team in the Mountain West right now.
Here's the thing that I found a little interesting, and going off of some numbers from CBB Analytics. I know you were citing some that Jeff Grammer cited this website. And I look over the last 5 games. I can either do the last 5 games or the last 10 games. Those are the only ways I can sort it out. Colorado State's won 7 in a row, but they're 7-3 in their last 10. They're 5-0 in their last 5. So I'm going to isolate it to 5 to make it a little bit more friendly to them, because that's the best I can do here. And I look at net rating, and I use their adjusted net rating. So this is adjusted for their opponent. Because if you just look at net rating, let's say this by net rating, Colorado State is the best team over the last 5 games in the Mountain West. Better than New Mexico, better than the Aggies, literally better than everyone in the Mountain West. Once you adjust for opponent, Colorado State goes down to being the 5th best team. They're 5-0. Every team above them in that adjusted net rating has lost at least 1 game. San Diego State's lost 3 games. And San Diego State still has a better adjusted net rating. And that's where I find this somewhat interesting, is that, yeah, Colorado State has this really good, net rating, but a lot of it has to do with, the opponent they played, where they're not playing super strong opponents, save for when they played San Diego State, where you cannot argue with that. That was an impressive win. Sure, it was at home, but like you played a really good San Diego State team.
Yeah.
They scored 83 points against that San Diego State defense. And really the thing with Colorado State, what's happening is they are getting back to the offense that they had before things kind of went sideways for them, with Kyle Jorgensen getting injured. And as I said, losing 8 out of 11 games, because they have the best offensive rating, and including adjusted offensive rating. Again, adjusting for opponent, over the last 5 games, they have the best offensive rating. of nearly 130, and it's 98th percentile in the country. So that's not just best in the Mountain West; they're one of the best in the dang country. Where that's like, top 10, top 15. So, but their defense is, well, kind of what it's been all year, mediocre to below average. Like they're in the 30th percentile for adjusted defensive rating in these last 5 games. And that kind of makes Colorado State maybe a finicky team where, if the offense trails off a little bit, or they just find themselves in a game where they can hit all the shots, but they can't ever stop their opponent, like, I don't know, they could end up being the most dangerous team in the Mountain West tournament, or they'll flame out in the first round.
Yeah, it's interesting to see just how some of these teams will finish out, because Utah State's sole possession in first place. New Mexico, San Diego State, they're both tied for second. Then you got Nevada and Grand Canyon tied for fourth. And then you've got Colorado State, Boise State, and UNLV all tied for sixth. So Colorado State's on this run. They've been moving up and climbing the standings here. So this helps their overall resume, just looking at where their standings are going to be and where they're going to be placed in the Mountain West tournament next week. But it also, I think, helps Ali Faroukmanesh and his team look at, we were down on our luck, but we found a way to rally back.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to learn some things about ourselves. So I don't know, Colorado State, Boise State, UNLV, there's a possibility Utah State could face one of those teams next week in the tournament with the way that the seeding works. I probably would rather face Boise State or Colorado State.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see after tomorrow. Maybe the Aggies embarrass UNLV in Las Vegas, but we've seen what the Rebels can do against the Aggies.
Yeah. With
their lineup, and they're a chaotic team.
Yeah.
And they can be good chaos, they can be bad chaos. But Colorado State right now, they're on a run. And so momentum's a real thing. It may run out.
Yeah, we'll see if that momentum holds. They got to go to New Mexico, and then they're at home against Boise. So that's 2 tough games to end the season.
Yeah, New Mexico wants to stay in the hunt to be the number 1 team. Boise State, they're kind of in a similar boat. They've had a rough year. They want to try to finish on a better note. But yeah, it's interesting to see what's happened to the Rams.
I think it would just be absolute peak Mountain West if somehow Colorado State gets a win in the pit, and then Boise beats San Diego State, and then Utah State's playing UNLV to clinch an outright Mountain West title, and then of course somehow Utah State would probably lose that game too. So we'd reset everything.
Yes.
Of course, if San Diego State and New Mexico both lost, of course New Mexico doesn't play till Wednesday, so we wouldn't find out this result until after the Utah State plays UNLV. But if San Diego State loses and New Mexico loses on Wednesday, Utah State would clinch a share of the Mountain West title regardless of result against UNLV. But I don't really see that situation happening, largely because I think New Mexico is going to take care of business in the pit. We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll get into bracketology. Where do things sit? The Aggies, they were sitting on the 8-seed line in the bracketology late last week. Have they improved? Who are some of the teams that they might be looking at facing if they're in the 8-9 or the 7-10 matchup? And then we'll look at where other teams in the Mountain West have New Mexico, San Diego State, managed to secure, they're kind of hanging around. They're on the bubble. How are things going for them? So we'll get to that next here on the Full Court Press. Indoor air in our area can be up to 5 times dirtier than outdoor air, especially during dry winter months. Dry air keeps dust and allergens floating longer, sending them deeper into your lungs and making sickness more likely. Mountain Valley Heating and Air installs high-efficiency steam humidifiers that use 1 gallon of water with no waste to improve air quality. Call 435-753-5170 for a free in-home air quality assessment from Mountain Valley Heating and Air. So let's look at the bracketology as we look at the Mountain West. I was putting out my average, the composite rankings for all the teams, and we're at the point where metrics don't really change a whole lot. Like the Aggies lost 2 in a row, and I think they fell a total of like 3 spots. And that included a blowout loss and then a loss to a team that's, in the 60s or 70s in the net. So like,
well, Utah State even won over the weekend and are still lower
than
they were
true.
going into
so
the
like
game.
it's hard to move up or down, at this stage. So we have one team in the Mountain West, in Utah State, who is really well positioned for March Madness, for getting into the tournament. That's Utah State. They're top 30, and basically their lowest metric is 30. Like every single metric has them in the top 30. Then you have 2 teams that are just inside the top 50 by most metrics. That's New Mexico and San Diego State.
Yep.
So those are your 3 teams. Because to be an at-large team, you got to be in that top 50. I know there's 68 teams, and so you're thinking, if we're in like the top 60, okay, but there's like 18 auto bids. I know there's like 30 conferences, but there's 18 teams roughly that are getting into the tournament that would have no business getting in as an at-large.
Yeah, they're going to be in the 200s.
Yeah, so you got to realize you got to be into that top 50 and ideally well into that top 50 to be comfortable for an at-large bid. And so while San Diego State and New Mexico are both kind of comfortably inside that, they're in the mid-40s on average in a lot of these rankings, like in Ken Palm and the net and whatnot. New Mexico is barely in, according to Bracket Matrix, where they have 78 brackets as of today. We're at the point where they're updating every day and sometimes twice a day.
Yeah, multiple times during the day. I actually just hit refresh. Now it's up to 82.
Oh, really? Oh, is it? Oh,
yes.
Hold on. I had this. Yeah, I opened it like the beginning of the show. Okay, so 82
same.
brackets.
I thought, I'll hit refresh and see if it changes.
And every bracket is updated as of February 28th. So the day that the Aggies, so it might not account for Utah State against Grand Canyon, but those are the oldest brackets. A lot of them were updated as of today.
Yeah.
March 2nd. And so there's 82. So let's see if anything changes here. I think New Mexico, actually, they got a big bump, actually, because they were, now I wish I could have seen the other one, because they only had 50 or 60 something brackets they were in, but they're in 71 of 82 brackets. But they are I think second to last team in, or third, because you have
they're
Ohio,
right on the line.
Yeah, they're the last team listed as an 11 seed, although you have Ohio State, who's in only 59 brackets, and Indiana, who's in 39, though their average seed, according to Bracket Matrix, is a little higher, but there's fewer brackets that have them in. So New Mexico, one of those, probably last 4 in, maybe just sneaking into one of those last 4 buys, but a lot of brackets currently have them as, again, they're just right on that line. Last 4 in, first 4 out. They are in one of those 2, leaning more toward last 4 in.
Yes.
With them being in 85+% of brackets. Again, 71 out of 82, whatever that math comes out to. San Diego State, not nearly as healthy of a situation. There are only 13 brackets out of those 82 that have them in the field of 68. That puts them as the 3rd team of what you would call the first 4 out. There's Auburn, who's in 29 brackets, VCU, who's in 26. And then actually have Virginia Tech and California are each in 9 brackets. So San Diego State, they're around. They are on the bubble technically, but very much on the outside looking in. And honestly, I don't know if there's anything that San Diego State can really do at this point to earn an at-large bid, because it's kind of the conundrum that at this point, the wins that they would have to get to earn an at-large bid equal the number of wins that would just get them through the end of the Mountain West tournament and winning it all and going to the tournament anyway.
Yeah, this is their last 2 games. They're at Boise tomorrow, and then they host UNLV on Friday.
Neither of those
are real needle movers.
Yeah, you're not moving the needle at all.
That was a big win for the Aztecs.
Yeah. And then, in the Mountain West tournament, like first round, you're not necessarily going to be playing, a big team. I don't know, where would they be at in the, let's see. So they're number 2, probably. I don't know where the tiebreaker would end. So they'd play, they'd be playing one of like Wyoming, Fresno, Boise, or Colorado State, I think. Maybe in their first round because they'd get a bye. I think somebody recently put out like what the Mountain West bracket would look like right now. But their first round matchup wouldn't really be moving the needle. A semifinal matchup, that's where you start having a needle moving game. But like a game for San Diego State isn't moving the needle anymore. Like you'd have to have more than one. So you'd have to win the semifinal, win the championship. But again, the math, the number of wins to math all this out that gets the Aztecs back into an at-large conversation is, again, just equivalent to what they need to do to be in the to win the Mountain West Championship tournament.
This is going back to college basketball or CBB analytics. It was actually Jeff Grammer who shared this over the weekend. Utah State, these are looking at seed probabilities for the Mountain West. Utah State, 77.5% to have the 1 seed. San Diego State, its strongest position is as the 2 seed with 68.7%. New Mexico, its highest number is as the 3 seed with 58.3%. And Nevada as the 4 seed at 62.3% is their highest percentage to define their seed.
Is that CBB Analytics or Bartorvik?
That's CBB Analytics.
Didn't realize they did that.
Oh. So, but bottom line here, San Diego State, New Mexico, they're kind of locked in place kind of with each other, trying to figure things out. Yeah. But based on looking at the games this week, San Diego State has the easier path to finish their season than New Mexico does. And so it's more likely that San Diego State would finish as the number 2 seed while New Mexico the number 3 seed.
Yeah, but who knows what happens. We've had a lot of surprises in the Mountain West so far.
Yes, very true.
So, yeah, and so those are where San Diego State and New Mexico lie, where New Mexico can probably afford one more stumble. If they finish the regular season strong, if they beat Utah State, that might get New Mexico into the tournament, as if they beat Utah State, so long as they don't like flame out in the first round of the Mountain West tournament, or technically it would be the second round when they play. That would probably get them in. They'd probably still be on the bubble. They'd probably still be going to those the first 4 in those games, but playing in Dayton. But like they'd probably be in the tournament. But yeah, if they lose one or both their last couple of games, they probably go the way of San Diego State. Again, barring a non-West tournament run. But let's look at Utah State, where they stand, because they were an 8th seed as of pre-playing Grand Canyon. They'd fallen from being as high as like kind of the mid-7 seed line, but then losing 2 in a row bumped them to the 8 seed line. Well, now according to Bracket Matrix, they've jumped back into the 7 seed line. Of course, they were like the 3rd of the 4 7 seeds before I hit refresh a moment ago, but now they're the 4th of those 7 seeds. So they are barely on that 7 seed line, just ahead of St. Louis and just behind Villanova. St. Mary's also ahead. St. Mary's getting that win over Gonzaga.
Yeah, big win for St. Mary's and for the Gales. But this is Utah State was in the 8th position, and they were showing up in a lot of brackets as a 9. But they've kind of crept back up. There are a few brackets out there that still have them as high as a 6, but there are quite a few who still put the Aggies in the 9 seed spot. But overwhelmingly, though, still in that number 7. But for Utah State, much rather be in that 7 seed than the 8 or the 9.
Yeah.
So to secure that, you got to win this week. Can't afford another loss. And they have to at least be in the championship game, if not win it all following Saturday. Yeah,
if you're wanting that 7, or heaven forbid, I think 6 is just out of the realm. even if you win out, I don't know if the Aggies can climb high enough to get a 6th by the actual tournament organizers
Right.
or committee. Because the Aggies were projected as a 6 seed, like back in, when they won the Mountain West Championship with Danny Sprinkle, and they were made an 8 seed. So, yeah, Utah State very much looking at that 7, 8, or 9. And, yeah, if you can sneak in by the skinnier teeth to that 7 seed line, like that's where you're kind of wanting to be. And at that point, you're kind of rooting for BYU to lose out and hope that maybe the tournament committee puts them in like an 8 or a 9, because that could bump the Aggies up from that 8-9 matchup to being in the 7-10. At that point, you're looking at playing probably one of basically you'll play a power conference team, because that's where all the 10 seeds are. You've got Texas, UCLA, SMU, and Texas A&M, and then then a lot of the 9 seeds. Actually, all of the 9 seeds.
All of the 9 seeds. Yeah.
Like heck of the. Yeah, from the 8 to 10 seeds, there's only one mid-major team, and that's St. Louis. Everyone else, 8 seed through 10 seed, is just a bunch of power conference team. SEC, ACC, Big 10, one Big 12 team. So, yeah, a lot of teams a lot of teams that are going 500 in their league, but really tough leagues to give them their due credit there.
Yeah, they've got a tough schedule to play, but yeah, for Utah State, they're looking good. Even though they lost a couple of games, they be able to rebound and get some wins, be a little bit more firm in that in those higher seeds, get a favorable position, because it's not just getting a favorable matchup in the first round, but if you can win that one, you might also have a favorable position in the second round. You want to get to the second weekend if you can. It's just been something Utah State hasn't done in forever. But of course, the problem they've always had to go through the blue chip teams in college basketball.
Yeah.
And it's always been tough for them to do that.
Yeah, it's hard to win as a 13 seed, believe it or not.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if the Aggies, even if they're in the 7-10 matchup, in the next round, they're facing one of Florida, Houston, Illinois, and Iowa State, which that is, sheesh. Those are some dang good teams. It's not Duke, Michigan, Arizona, and Connecticut. Thankfully, that would, you'd be avoiding some of the best teams that have played college basketball in the last 5 years. But it's again, there are a lot of really good teams condensed into the top 10.
Yes.
Which is why making it to that 6 seed line would have been really good, because you're facing some teams that are maybe vulnerable, obviously still really good, but a little bit more beatable. But the thing is, at this point, for me, looking at the Aggies, you have one win in the NCAA tournament in the last 25 years. Set yourself up for a good round one. Get yourself a win in the NCAA tournament. Get yourself Eric's favorite thing, NCAA tournament units.
That's right, baby. Units.
Get yourself some units. If you get waxed in the second round by a top 10 team, so be it. You don't have a whole lot of wins in the NCAA tournament, and the biggest thing that's going to help you, going forward, is getting wins at the very least in the first round, because that's part of where the committee is putting the Aggies so low. They'll never put them as a 6 or a 5 seed, because this team always loses in the first round, even though it's been a self-fulfilling prophecy. But get some wins, and that's where San Diego State, a year where they finished 5th in the standings, they were a 5 seed in the tournament. And that's just about that can be a free win if you play your cards right. There's no such thing as a free win, but you're playing a 12 seed.
Yeah, path is a lot easier.
Yeah, that is a team that you were a lot better than on paper. Whereas if the Aggies are in a 8, 9, 7, 10, they could be a 7 or an 8 seed and be an underdog. And so you need to get some wins as a 7 or an 8 or 9 seed to prove to the committee you can get wins in March. And then ideally that can pay dividends later, especially as the strength of schedule gets a little bit better going into the Pac-12 with teams like Gonzaga and cutting off the fat of, San Jose and Air Force.
Yes.
So we got to take a break here. We'll come back. We'll talk about the Jazz and some former Aggies, players who got the Aggies to some key games in March, but now they're making plays in March, but, playing for the NBA teams.
Contending teams.
Yeah, contending teams. Starters on contending teams and having all-time games. We'll talk about that next here on the Full Court Press. Cache Valley's largest and most complete power sports service shop is now open at Young Power Sports Logan. They service all brands, all makes, all sizes, motorcycles, ATVs, UTVs, and more. No guesswork, no shortcuts, just trained technicians who fix it right the first time. At Can-Am, Kawasaki, Polaris, Ski-Doo, they handle them all, in and out, done right, guaranteed. Pickup and delivery is available within a 25-mile radius. So get back on the road, the trail, or the track fast. Schedule your service now at 755. Call 755-7111. That's Young Power Sports Logan Service Department. Call 755-7111. And they sponsor our Young Power Sports Logan text line, where we've got a couple of texts. 9-5. I know you texted earlier about UNLV Overtime Gaming helping USU, and we kind of answered that question even though we didn't read off the text.
Yeah.
But then sending in saying the 6, 7, 8, 9 line, what do you get in the second round for a seed? As in the number, not the name of the school. Yeah, 6-11, that'll get you the winner of the 3-14. 7-10 gets you the winner of the 2-15, and the 8-9 gets you the winner of the 1-16.
Yep.
So that's where that maths out. So obviously, basically, 8-9 gets you the 1 seed, 7-10 gets you the 2 seed, 6-11 gets you the 3 seed, and so on and so forth. Upsets obviously can happen, but that's the game you play.
Right.
And then 8-9, 6-8. Saying no matter what seed the Aggies get, they probably get the number 1 team in the nation. That's only if they get the 8-9. Although most brackets I saw had them in the 8-9 going up against Arizona, where Arizona's not the 1 team because it's Duke right now, and then it's either Michigan or Arizona that's 2 or 3. Michigan was number 1, and they lost to Duke, and I can't remember if Michigan fell to 2 or 3.
As far as the number one,
It's like the AP.
the top. Oh, the AP poll?
Yeah.
Please hold.
I'll read this text, 5338, saying, has a schedule been released yet for agriculturalist spring football? Not that I'm aware of.
No.
I've not checked.
Nope.
Still waiting on that because I'm looking to see if I get to any of the practices.
Duke, number 1 with 55 first place votes. Arizona, number 2 with 4 first place votes, followed by Michigan, UConn, and Florida as your top 5.
How does Michigan fall from 1 to 3 when they lost to the team that is now number 1? I don't get AP voters. They're so dumb. They're so dumb in terms of their voting. I shouldn't say they're dumb as people, but their voting habits are dumb.
Yeah.
That's just, I don't understand it sometimes. But let's talk about the Utah Jazz for a minute here, mostly to note that they are now 5th in the lottery standings. Of course, New Orleans blew it by losing after they won 2 straight against the Jazz, but the Jazz remain ahead in the standings for now. They've lost 5 in a row. They're 18-42. New Orleans is 19-43. The Jazz are 1.5 games behind, if you're going to call it that. Washington, who is, I believe you noted.
Yeah, some news today. Trae Young will make his debut for the Washington Wizards on Thursday, who happened to play the Utah Jazz.
They need to let him go off for 60.
Yeah, that's right.
He might give up 47 on defense, but it's plus 13, baby.
So, I mean, honestly, kind of surprised that they're going to let him play.
And they're actually, especially in that game.
Right.
Like, that's the game they want to lose.
Yeah. So, because Washington has become famous for shutting players down for the year.
Yeah.
But maybe with some of the things going on, these edicts from Adam Silver, like, if he's healthy, we have to play him.
Yeah. A couple more notes for the NBA. Sam Merrill and Neemias Queta continuing to have great seasons. Sam Merrill scored 15 points in Cleveland's win over Brooklyn. He had 20 points in their overtime loss, really close loss to Detroit. I was watching overtime in that game, played 36 minutes, and again had 20 points, was playing in the clutch. But Neemias Queta.
By the way, Sam Merrill was a plus 20 last night in their win over Brooklyn.
So he had a fantastic night, fantastic impact, even if not statistically impactful. But Neemias Queta was statistically impactful. Against the Philadelphia 76ers, a game in which Boston won 114-98. Queta had 27 points and 17 rebounds.
And 3 blocks.
Yeah, and 3 blocks and 2 assists and a steal. He was himself plus 20.
He was a monster
in that game. I think there was like comparisons of he was the first player in like a long time
Since Robert Parrish.
Was Robert Parrish
in 1989 to have a similar stat line.
Was that just Celtics or just NBA as a
First
whole?
Celtics, yeah.
Yeah, like to have like you like the 20, 25 plus points, 15 plus rebounds, 3 plus blocks, shooting 70% from the field. That kind of, you got to have a lot of qualifiers for it to be an all-time game. But like any 27 and 17 game is going to be impressive. And to see former Aggies having these kind of games, especially where Sam and Nemish are similar in a lot of ways to their journey to the NBA, where they get drafted, they're on two-way contracts, they never really get a chance with their first team. Then they're bouncing around a couple of different places, playing in the G League, putting up great numbers in the G League, but then, find their way on a different team. Sam lands with Cleveland, Nemish with Boston, and really through finally getting some luck, they play. Because Sam really only got his burn last year because there were injuries.
Right.
And then they found out, oh, yeah, this guy can play.
Yeah, this guy's a competitor.
Yeah, so
and he can shoot.
Yeah.
He's got a quick release.
He earns a spot in the playoff rotation, earned a contract. They were facing some tough salary stuff. They chose to keep him over a guy like Ty Jerome, who was, proving his own worth. Then Nemish Queta, he only is playing this year because Boston was way over the second apron and had to jettison as many people as possible. And they're like, all right, Nemish, you're up. We're throwing you to the Wolves. Best of luck. This is our rebuilding year. We expect to not be nearly as good. And Nemish is like, by the way, guys, I'm actually good at basketball.
I can play. Yeah, this was supposed to be a rebuilding year for Boston. Instead, they're the number 2 team in the East.
Yeah.
Jaylen Brown has a lot to say about that, but
yeah.
Nemish Queta has absolutely played a role in what they've been able to do this year in great offensive efficiency, more so defensive efficiency, but also scoring on the offensive end and showing his versatility. So it's super fun to watch him play and get a lot of minutes and get all the love that he got and deserved to get yesterday.
Yeah, Boston is absolutely loving him right now. We do need to take one more break. When we come back, we're going to reveal Pick 6. Who won Pick 6, was best at predicting the things that we thought were going to happen over the weekend. That's next here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan. Welcome on back to the Full Court Press. Fitting bump music to those watching on the YouTube stream at the Fan KLGN. You don't get to hear the bump music. Copyright and all those things.
Yep.
We have the rights to pull it over the radio, but not over YouTube.
Just imagine it in your mind.
Yeah, it's really nice, slow, good wind down music for the end of our show here. But to end out this show, we've got to go over the Pick 6 results. We try to predict the 6 things we thought would happen over the weekend. Now here comes the audit. So, starting out with the lines that I set, Utah State, their rebounding margin against Grand Canyon. I set the over-under at -4.5. And they'd be out rebounded by 4.5 over under that line. You said over, I said under. The Aggies were out rebounded by 9, even though they won 35-27. So I get that one. Next one, teams tied atop the Sun Belt. There was a potential for a 7-way tie. And so I said, all right, how many teams would be tied? I said the over under at 3.5. I took the over. You took the under, Eric. Well, there were 0 teams tied because Troy is 12-6, alone in first. There are 6 teams that are 11-7 behind them.
Wow.
So had Troy, granted, the odds were probably always really long because Troy was playing the last place team, Louisiana Monroe, who was 1-17 in conference play. So it was probably always a long shot. Maybe that was a dumb one, but hey, man, a man can dream.
Yeah.
So we're 1-1 now. Jake Hall, points against San Diego State, over under 14.5. We both took the under, and we were both right as he scored 14 points. So pretty much right on that line, but just under. The Aztecs or the Lobos got enough from him as they got the win. So we're 2-2. Heading into the lines that you said, Eric. Combined blocks for Utah State and Grand Canyon in their game against each other. You set the line at 4.5. I took the over. You took the under. Grand Canyon had 3. Utah State had 2, so they combined for 5.
Oh, so close.
Just over the line. So I'm up 3-2. Next, Cody Williams, his combined points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. A lot of potential numbers for him to add up. You set the line at 17.5. This was his game on Thursday against the Pelicans. I took the under. You took the over. I took the under before I even heard the number.
Yeah, you didn't even have to hear it.
The actual result was 11. He had 6 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, and 1 block.
Ah, Cody.
So, yeah, I go up 4-2 there as we head into the final line. Neemias Queta, points, rebounds, and blocks against the 76ers. You set the line at 10.5.
Oh, gosh, that was way off.
If he didn't have a single point, he would have hit the over. If he didn't have a single rebound, he would have doubled the line. And he had 27 points, 17 rebounds, 3 blocks to be detailed last segment.
I think you misheard that. That was the line for Cody Williams, and the other one was for Nemi. I think I got those.
He still would have hit the over
backwards on my notes.
That would have been a little more reasonable though, because like I said at the time, like my line of thinking will he go over or under was like 16.5. Like that was my line of, where I was kind of making that decision. But he would have gone way over. He got 47 out of all those.
Crushed it.
So I end up winning pick 6 by a rather dominant 5-2. The tiebreaker, I would have also won that too, as it was USU Gymnastics, their score against Air Force, a 195.25. They got a 196.025. So
yes, they did very well.
Yeah, they hit the over. Their second straight 196 of the season, though those aren't their only 2 196s of the season. I think that's just about going to do it for us here.
Congratulations on another win. These lines weren't as close as we've had in the past.
They were the final score wasn't as close. Some of the lines were good, but winning 5-2 was pretty dominant for me. But that's going to do it for us here. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We welcome you guys to tune in tomorrow here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.